5:30 to order. So shall we stand and salute our flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Arlene, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Here.
Councilmember Busby.
Here.
Thank you.
So our meeting tonight is to address our finances and Measure I and our projections for the revenue and what we may do with that. So with that in mind, anybody wishing to address this committee on matters that are not already on the agenda, which is Measure I and the finances, please step forward and state your name if you prefer. We would appreciate it if you did. And keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody have any public comments on items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move straight to minutes approval. Since there's only two of us, I guess you have to make the motion.
Motion to approve minutes.
I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So before we get to the actual discussion, I would just like to let everyone know that this Finance and Measure I committee was something that I wanted to see happen when I got elected to the council. I wanted to see a more robust explanation of the finances to the public and to actually have some better oversight of some of the things that the council should have oversight. The Finance Committee did not have a written set of rules, so we have that now. And the Measure I Oversight Committee is to explain and show where we are with our finances. This committee is just a fact gathering committee. We have no authority over the budget at this point in time. That's for the entire council. So once we gather the information that you folks share with us tonight, we'll take that back and present it to the full council for consideration as we go through our budget. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that,
Yeah,
Busby?
just I'm really glad that this is happening. I think that there's been a lot of time and a lot of information around the city finances and our financial situation. I think as Rick said, that we're here to listen. We're here to do more listening than talking and hear what the community wants. Some of it is going to be stuff that we've talked a little bit about, but just know that we're here trying to do the right thing, trying to collect information and make the best decisions we can with the information that we have. So thank you all for being here very much, and yeah,
we look forward to your comments. Marty Brown, do you want to start us off?
Certainly. Yes, I'd be happy to. To start off the town hall meeting, we thought we'd do a brief presentation about the city's current and projected for this next year financial situation, both the budget and projected funds for Measure I, the 1.5% sales tax measure. And so we were going to start with that and then open up the floor for comments, feedback, questions. So it's pretty high level. You want to hit next slide? So the meeting agenda and objectives are to give you a brief overview of the budget and projected Measure I funds for this quarter that we're in now. As many of you probably know, we just started collecting Measure I April 1st of 2025. So we have yet to see exactly how that's going to turn out. And then talk a little bit about projected Measure I funds for the next year. Talk about some assumptions and considerations that are in this high level kind of overview and of the next year's budget. Some staff recommended budget items for fiscal year 25-26, projected financial forecasting that goes out beyond just this year, that looks based on the assumptions here in the presentation, but based on the assumptions around Measure I projections and revenues, and then open it up to input, feedback, questions, all that kind of thing. As part of the town hall process, and then talk about any follow-up or next steps. Next slide. So to start with, wanted to think about this in a chronological way, for starters. So we're projecting July 1 of this year, 25, we will have a starting fund balance or general fund reserve of just over $1 million. This includes the first quarter of Measure I sales tax, which was April, May, and June, and that's projected to be approximately $475,000. And then the total general fund revenue for this next fiscal year, 25, 26, is 7.3 million. And that includes the projected Measure I revenue for an entire fiscal year of 1.9 million. And the total general fund expenditure is estimated to be 7.4 million, which is a little bit more obviously than the revenue, with a deficit between revenues and expenditures of $65,000. So the ending fund balance in the general fund reserve would then be just under $1 million. Next slide. So the assumptions, I wanted to start out with the things that are not included in here, related to revenues. First of all, the council about a month ago approved the sale of 3 city-owned properties. So any revenue from that is not included in this projection. We recently did an audit of our transit occupancy tax for hotels and motels. And there's a considerable shortfall there, but we have yet to be able to get those funds back from the motels and hotels yet. So because we're not sure how that's going to go, again, that's not included in these projections. There's also, as many of you are probably aware, that the council recently approved 2 licenses for cannabis dispensaries. And in that will be an additional tax above and beyond the 8.75% tax. There'll be another cannabis tax because we don't know what that's going to look like either. And we're going through the application process right now. Council will be selecting those 2 businesses. That's also not included in these projections. And then, of course, any future development or private investment is not included. We don't know what that'll look like. Next slide. Budget assumptions and considerations of increases that are just fairly standard across the board. The sheriff's contract will be going up and starting July 1 by $335,000 from 2 million flat to 2.335 million will increase on July 1. There's union contracts. Contracts have been expired for the past year with our 2 bargaining units. So we've been in labor negotiations there, and there are expected to be some increases. We have already calculated increases in healthcare insurance. Our unfunded pension liability has gone up by 80,000 this year, and then city liability and regular property insurance is estimated to go up again also by about 20,000. And then there are some anticipated line by line department, just the cost of doing business. That's looks like it's going to be going up by about 75,000 across all departments for a total of $633,000 increase this next fiscal year. Next slide. Some of the recommended items for from the staff to address some deferred budgetary needs include a Ford F-150 for Public Works, which that vehicle recently basically blew up. So we don't have that vehicle anymore. A fire engine 2, which we probably should have ordered about 3 years ago. Replacing some asphalt area behind the fire station that's actually become a public safety hazard. Looking at potential of a full-time administrative analyst to be split between the community development department and the fire department. Part-time seasonal public works employee, creating a new assistant library director position and eliminating the library technician position. A new website, IT upgrades we have about 2/3 of our computers are outdated and the licenses have expired. So we need to update those, and also a recommendation to continue the TOT auditing and monitoring, because we've learned not doing that has cost the city a fair amount of money. So I would strongly encourage the council to keep doing that and making sure we're getting the TOT tax that we're supposed to be getting. And so that totals right there an additional $516,000. Next slide. So the projected general fund reserve, this shows the reserve from fiscal 2019 to 2030, and that's based on the assumptions I started out with at the beginning of this presentation. And it's been updated recently to incorporate all those increases that I just talked about. And so at the end of 25, 26, if everything that I just discussed was approved or is approved by the council, there would be this deficit between revenue and expenditures of $65,000. But as you can see, in out years, we would go into the black. Next slide. The one thing I want to make really clear about this is just that when I talk about a deficit, I want to make it clear that that's a deficit between incoming revenue and expenditures. Because as you can see from fiscal year 25-26, that 13% right in the middle of the chart, the ending fund balance for this next year would be $939,000. So that's basically like saying we'll still have almost $1 million in our savings account, our rainy day fund. And it's not that even though there's a deficit between revenues and expenditures, it doesn't mean that we're ending next year with no money. It means we're using a little bit of the savings account to balance the budget for this year. And honestly, I think it's a lot lower than I thought it was going to be, because I knew this year was going to be very lean because of the sales tax not starting until April. So I was expecting actually a higher number in the red, and even a lower fund balance at the end of this next fiscal year. Next slide. That's pretty much the presentation, for just to give everyone a snapshot idea of where things stand and what we're projecting and forecasting for the future. And the floor is open for comments and feedback from the committee, as well as any suggestions for next steps. We talked about a community survey. It might be something to do after this meeting and get it out to the wider community that's not here this evening, or even the possibility of a facilitated workshop with the community, not necessarily the council, if that's something down the road the council would want to consider. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and unless there's any questions or anything.
Thank you. What I'd like to add to that is we didn't get here overnight. So we have been band-aiding and not filling certain positions as we go forward. We didn't refill the mechanics position when it went vacant, or another public works employee that left our employ. So we've had savings from those sort of things. We'd like to get back to where we started. The other thing is we have some substantial deferred maintenance items. And these things are not going to get fixed this budget, and probably not even the next budget, but our street sweeper, our leaf pickup, our I think, matter of fact, stump grinder we had is totally inoperable. So those sort of things are about anywhere from 20 to 30 years beyond their life expectancy. So we need to figure out how we're going to do that. The fire engine, we're putting $250,000 in aside for that to see if we can actually make that move forward, because it's starting to fail. But at the same time, what we want to hear tonight is what you're thinking you'd like to see happen in the city. Now, I did take a look at social media. When I shared our flyer, I didn't get any responses to the flyer, but there was somebody else that posted. And basically what I understood was the library, police, fire, roads were the big ticket items that was discussed. So roads, if I may take a moment, those are funded by our gas tax. So I don't know where you buy your fuel, but since I learned what this all was, I've been buying my fuel from a City of Willows service station, because the gas tax comes back to the city so we can fix our road. I know it's sometimes cheaper if you go. I just came down from Reading after a doctor's appointment, and it was $3.99 at the casino. It's really kind of hard to swallow that extra cost that you're buying it locally, but those this sales tax and the road tax comes back for us to fix these roads that we need to do. So with that, if you have anything else to add?
Yeah, so for folks who may not know, when Marty talks about fiscal year, so the city operates July to July. So we're not on the calendar year. So just so you know, when we start talking about fiscal year, you see like fiscal year 25, 26. That's because our year starts in July, just as a clarifying. But yeah.
Who'd like to go first? Who's going to break the Break the ceiling. By the way, I've asked Carlene to sit up here, so if you would state your name, she's going to make sure that we capture the salient points of what you're asking for, even though we are recorded and it will be available on the web. This way, we actually will have that and we can hand that off to each of our fellow council members, so we know what the feeling is from the general public.
My name's Dan Gupton, and having been a lifelong uh, born and raised here, our family goes back to the 1860s and 70s here in Willows. So we have a long, and we were business owners here years back too. So I want to thank the council for this. I think this was a good step forward. I think it was a really good move. I think we also need to thank the voters of Willow.
Yes, we do.
And by that, though, we now have a challenge because they're putting their faith in us. They're putting their faith in every department head. They're putting their faith in the city council. They're putting their faith that you'll do what you say you're going to do, or explain why there's certain things might have to be adjusted. So I thank you for that. You know, with the library, the only thing that we would like and to consider, I'm not aware of an assistant director's position. Never heard about that, but I feel that for $36,000, we can get our children's librarian who's been part-time, which had been approved last year's budget full-time. And that's it. I mean, that's all we're asking. I know that, you know, if every department only asked that, we'd be really good shape. But the children's librarian does so much for this library because they're working, they're getting kids to learn to read, they're getting kids to come and look at things. And the other thing too is that it's real easy when you have your pet project. Mine's library, we have ones that's fire department, we have, you know, and that's fine, that's everybody. And so there is a tendency to sometimes think that's, you know, and the fire department is very important, you're wrong. But there's sometimes think that we should get it all now. And like you guys are saying, we all have to be patient. But I think 36,000 is a pretty minimal request.
Is that in
especially
addition to what we just approved at the last council meeting?
because that was, as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was for the part-time position of children's.
That's what we approved. So is this 36,000 you're saying is in addition to?
That
Or
would be full-time, which had been approved in last year's budget to have a full-time children's. So yeah.
funded by a grant that was so graciously founded by our library director?
That's right. But that's, in other words, people want part of the pie that's going to be measure out. So we're like everybody else. We're asking for that to be part of the pie, 36,000. And the other thing is in closing, it's real easy to think that we're more important than anyone else or everybody is. We all have our favorites. But what we have to think out of what is best for the city, what's best for trying to get us back up where we were. This didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight. But if we don't do what the people think we should do, we'll never get another measure out.
Well, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here. So every department head, every city person needs to think about that too, is that we have a hard job ahead, and we have to be honest and look what's best for the city, not a particular, whatever it could be. And if we do that, I think the citizens of Willows will step up with it needs down the road, and they'll do that. But if we don't, because it's perception, doesn't even have to be truthful. It's the perception. And this is a good thing for perception, what you're having right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Might point out that one of the things that's important, critical mass, is we campaigned for our sales tax on the premise that we would rebuild our reserves. And this tentative budget actually has over $400,000 going back on our reserves. So we would be, without the sales tax, we would be in the whole $53,000 at the end of this fiscal year. So thank you. Who's next? Doug Ross. We're adding back over $400,000 to the reserves for the city pursuant to our projected budgetary expense, all subject to approval by the ultimate council. We have somebody that can bring it to you.
Thank you, Carly.
Um, I both didn't really hear you, but also, would you, take that one sentence you just said and explicate it just a little more? Like, I got literally what you said, but I didn't, really get the context of it or I'm trying to think of a word. I go through this all the time, and I sometimes feel that people leave a public meeting where they've taken in a lot of data, but if you went back and tested them, there's a lot of things they either were afraid to ask for more specificity about, or, you know, so seizing this just as a exercise, would you mind explaining what you just said just a little bit more?
I will do my best.
Thank you.
So when we end the year for June 30th, 2025, without the sales tax revenue, we would have about $530,000 in reserves. With the sales tax revenue is estimated at $475,000, we will have right at $1 million in our reserve. At the end of the year, we will still have $1 million at the end of the year. Round numbers.
That's fair enough.
And so basically with the 475 in the first quarter actually it's the fourth quarter of the fiscal year, July or April 1st to the end of June, we're projecting $475,000. And we plan on keeping that available.
So the
For reserves.
$475,000 is free sales tax receipts figured in, and the close to $1 million is post sales tax figured in.
Yes,
Is that correct?
correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
David Vodden, retired. First of all, I do want to applaud the city for following through with the transparency of this sales tax initiative. I know when it was on the ballot and in the community being discussed, there was concern about how this money would be spent and whether it would be utilized to improve the quality of life for the majority of the citizens of Willows. And to that extent and to that goal, I'm strongly in favor that we do utilize this money to improve the overall quality of life and the future of this city by investing in the future, by not using it as a pot of money found to fill old wishes and wants and needs and such. I know there are times when we have to do things, but I'd like to see us think about how to make Willows bigger, better, stronger, an economic engine on the I-5 corridor. And to do that, you have to invest in the future, whether that's investing in promoting the community, whether it's investing in services and values that people will get off the freeway to spend their money with us. I'd like to see us think that way. I'm particularly, as you may recall, motivated by the city pool. The city pool had been closed for quite some time, and the efforts to get it open were aimed at serving a large body of citizens of this community. I've heard more than once that there's no place to go for our kids and so on and so forth, that we've been through this before. But I see the pool as providing value to the moms, the dads, the kids, the elders, the seniors, all of whom can assemble at the pool. And that's what I'd like to see us do. We are on I-5. We do have the ability to attract people off the freeway. We know that Walmart does that from Calusa Reading and Corning and Orland. We also know that the racetrack draws 60 to 80,000 people off of I-5. They go west. So I'd like to see us think not so much about fulfilling unserved needs and wants and special requests, but looking at what can we invest in that will produce revenue generating actions, assets, decision making, so that 3 to 5 years from now, those things we do today, tomorrow, and next month will be producing the revenue that we don't have today. We discussed, as you all know, the lack of revenue, the missing links in revenue generation for the city of Willows. And so I'd like to work on the revenue side of this economic model called the city of Willows. And I encourage you to do that. I thank you for having the visionary leadership. I'm particularly pleased with what I don't see today that I saw years not so long ago, which is a lot of adverse commentary about this is wrong and that is wrong and this person is that person. I'm so glad that seems to be gone. Maybe gone's a little strong, but I know it's a lot less because we lived it. So thank you for that. Thank you for everybody for letting this tax money come to our needs and wants and use. And I think we have the ability through strong leadership and staying the course and not falling victim to what if and feel good stuff to make the city of Willows what it should be and can be and will be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and something our kids will be proud of, and we'll look back and go, oh my goodness, it all started when we turned the tide and got going in a positive, solid, financially intelligent momentum for all of us. So thank you for that. And that's my pitch.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're
David.
welcome.
Who's next?
I think one thing that I know that I know that sometimes it can be a little bit tough, but me and my family have been thinking a lot about it too. Is how often do we go to Chico or Williams or something like that? Go outside the community to go out of convenience, or hey, we're going to be in Chico anyway. We might as well stop at this place. We're trying to be more mindful and making sure that we're spending our money inside the city. Every little bit helps. Sometimes it's not, obviously it's not feasible, but hey, if we've got folks inside the community that are leaving the community that buying things that they could buy here, hey, that hurts too. So that's one of the little small changes we can all kind of make culturally to help this along.
I just read a article about small towns and how we can do help improve. And what I took from that was let's help ourselves by helping others, by shopping local, buying those products local, like our gas, and other things that actually keeps the dollar spinning in Willows, where we actually have somebody's getting paid the salary to deliver the service or the product, and it comes back around, and then they spend and they spend. Somewhere along the lines years ago, I read that it was like 7 times the dollar rolls over if it's spent in the community. So let's help ourselves by helping others keep our businesses going strong. But I agree with you, Mr. Vodden, that revenue opportunities, signage off the freeway, we're looking forward to having Wood Street repaired by Caltrans, but that's not until 26. And the transit committee is actually working with Caltrans, trying to make sure that we get extra lighting and some other things. And one of the things that I've mentioned that we need to pay attention to is some of the street signs in Willows are faded blank. So we need to fix that. So when you're driving down Wood Street, you know where Villa is, where you know where Pacific is, you know where Murdoch is. And I think that's critical mass, and it says a lot about the care and character of the community if we get those things fixed. Anyone else like to speak? Mr. Ross.
Doug Ross with the Valley Mirror, speaking for myself more than anything. I've worked in several communities around Northern and Central California in journalism in my life. You don't get very long as soon as you dig out the skeletons behind any city's closet. It's like Woody Hayes said, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. For me, it's been 3 years in a cloud of escaping a cloud of nonsense. But I want to say that Willows is the longest tenure I've ever had. 27 years here now, marked with the Sacramento Valley Mirror, which compared to those average 3 year stints previously, I think really puts a boutonniere in Willows's lapel. I want to speak out as a 27 going on 28-year beneficiary of what Willows actually is as seen from the inside. And I'd like to thank everyone in town over those 30 years now that I've resided here. Everyone who's ever, worked retail where I've been the purchaser, everyone who has ever, answered my questions at City Hall or the Sheriff's Department or when the Willows Police Department was here, despite occasional friction between me and the police department over the years as a reporter. I've been a good boy the whole 30 years, so they haven't had much. I'm basically highly commending Willows because I don't think Willows, even though the Sacramento Bee, which I once wrote for, and I don't like the Bee, I'm just going to say it from the inside of the Bee. When they came out with the Sunday front page story on Willows a few years back, I remember them using, the reporter described Willows as a dowdy town, Dowdy. Well, that's like the blind man and the elephant. That's like him commenting on the tail of the elephant. I have been seen the rough side of Willows. I've seen the good side of Willows. And I personally think that Willows has more going for it than the chain of communities. And I've had experiences with each. Woodland, William, well, Maxwell, I don't know. It's kind of a small little dot on the map, but Williams is a little bigger, but Corning and Orland and and then all the way to Red Bluff. I'd put the blue ribbon on Willows for reasons I don't think that many people would care to listen to cite, but that's one thing good about being a writer. People don't have to listen to you, they just read to you. So that's basically the sum and substance of my remarks. If I may, I think like I have to put on forecast, looking ahead glasses of a month and a year and 10 years and 20 years and 30 years when I write stuff. And a recurring theme over the years in many communities, including here, is that I think the desire for immediate results gets lost because it disheartens people, and then a new council is elected, and then I don't think 30-year oculars are really in common circulation, but I would like to affirm that if we, in fact, and now I'm one of we when I say Willows, are going to leave a good legacy for our children. I think I would advise not getting too lost in the short haul. But having said all that, the question I would actually like to ask is, when Pilot was competing head to head, Willows and Orland were competing head to head for Pilot, which chose Orland. I wonder if there's any institutional knowledge here of why did Orland win? I've seen weak Chamber of Commerce's over the year. I've seen, like in Solano County, real strong chambers of commerce has brought big industry there, Anheuser-Busch and so forth. I've seen very weak chambers of commerce that really actually don't do much. But is there any institutional knowledge in the room about what the nature of what stakes Willows actually put on the table and what won out for Orland? If there isn't,
no such knowledge, unfortunately.
No, there isn't.
Just say again, I'm sorry.
I possess no such knowledge,
Okay,
and I
well,
don't know if anybody
I'm
does.
going to research it myself because I'm not it's not a rhetorical question, but it's not a question I expect answered. But I would propose that as a metaphor for a researchable when when Orland and Willows went head to head, why did Orland win is my semi-rhetorical question. Thank you.
Thank you.
David.
And we have to look forward and we have to capture the next big opportunity. And I think we should work with our supervisors and understand what Sites Reservoir can actually do for the community of Willows and see what we could start pushing for the development that would serve the needs of those construction workers. Because as I understand it, it's several thousand workers will be there for many, many years. Well, at this point in time, I don't want to get us off the course of what we're doing here for the city, but at the same time, I would like to have a conversation with you about what we can do.
I agree, Vice Mayor. Sites is gonna start their build out 2026, mid-year 2026. We bought their first piece of property. We're starting the geological part of it here coming up. So it's a go. The city of Maxwell has already put it on that they don't want those trucks inside their what you would call city limits. Now, how many people can you get into an F-350 that's going to lunch every day? There's a couple $100 each. But the thing is, and I've talked to the aggregate people, is if we equate it in an aggregate type of format, that is a dump truck load coming through our city every 5 minutes for 7 years. That's what it equates to. So we have the ability, and we're either going to have a positive impact or it's going to be a negative impact. That's going to affect the schools, it's going to affect the sheriffs, it's going to affect every part of life. But there are real revenues that we can capture going forward. And they just did a contract with, I believe, the county for Maxwell. And Sites Reservoir bent over backwards to give them what they wanted. Now, I talked to Jerry Brown the other day, the other Jerry Brown, the CEO, and he is wanting us the city to engage and see where we can go. And he did ask me, and I was going to reach out to you, Rick, he asked me to talk to you folks and see if we can get everybody at the table and find out what that means to us. Because, and I know, Matt, I had asked you a while back about KOAs and stuff, because people are going to be here for a year, 2 years, 3 years, because they got to build what, 4 dams? There ain't anybody around that builds dams around here, so they're going to have to come from somewhere. So they're going to have to stay somewhere. And if they're going to be here even a year, they're going to bring their family with them. So yes, we need to have that conversation, and we need to start that because we have to think forward on how we get there. But I appreciate the ask about sites, and it might not be the right forum, but we do need to look at that, and we're running out of time.
Let's get to it.
We are, okay.
I think it's
Thank you,
nice to
Jim.
hear opportunity, right? Like that opportunity is a good thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Jim Yoder, Supervisor, District 4. Okay. If you're uncomfortable coming up and speaking at the microphone, my email address, Matt's email address is on the city website. Feel free to write down your thoughts, your concerns, your wants. We're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we do what the folks within the city want, within the limitations of our budget and balancing public safety from fire and police. We have done a preliminary review of what it would take to build a police department without a a police station by just doing some modifications of this building and bringing it back in-house where it was before. That's about a $400,000 effort. And the overall projection was 3.5, but I think reality, we all know it's closer to $5 million. And then the big concern is currently, because there's a lack of police folks out there, many of the cities are offering $20,000, $30,000 signing bonuses. The fear with signing bonuses is once they've got their money and they've met their criteria, they're off to somebody else to get another signing bonus. So we've actually talked about other ways that we might be able to set a hook and an anchor to some of those that we would come. And perhaps if we get to the point where we can actually start recruiting for a police department, maybe we can come up with some incentives that actually anchor the folks to Willows based on quality of life, small town atmosphere, easily access to everything within 2 hours, Sacramento, Redding, Coast. So we're going to see what we can do. At least that's my thoughts. Mr. Ross, can you? Okay. We will if nobody else wants to step forward. I appreciate you all coming, but we want to hear what you have to think and what you think and say. This is your meeting.
Doug Ross, resident of Willows. I didn't want David Vodden to get away tonight without clarifying. When he said, right after I spoke, David said, let's leave the past in the past, but when I spoke about pilot. But I wanted to clarify that I was proposing it not as a historical annotation, but as a, thank you.
Talk into it, Dougie.
And I'm always the one that's criticizing people.
You might need to hold
There-
that up.
There's an research model, not a historical,
It doesn't stay up.
not as a I was proposing the pilot comparison for myself or anyone else to do, not as a thing of the past, but as a but as a research model in order to get close up to something like that.
So you're
to
suggesting a lesson and a methodology to not employ the next time.
correct. I was not tripping back into the past. The past goes back too far. But there are more things that I would like to say than I'm gonna say. I try not to use my column in the Valley Mirror as a personal pulpit, to express my own feelings about what I'd like to do. So I'm just gonna cut it off there.
Well, maybe I'll give you a call and we'll have coffee and you can fill me in on all of the other things.
That'll be excellent.
Okay?
Thank you. And thanks for having this tonight. It's good to have transparency, as you call it.
That's the goal. Thank you. Anyone else? Closing statements, Mr. Busby?
Thank you guys for being out here. Thank you for being so passionate about the community. Thank y'all for being so gracious and welcoming for my learning curve in all this. And shop local.
Thank you. I do also want to echo the fact that it's nice to have some folks came out, and I appreciate your engagement and your interest and wanting to see what Willows can be. I made a personal choice. I worked here from January of 1995 until I retired. Never lived in Willows. Didn't find a house that I liked, so I ended up in Orland. But when it came time to retire and I needed to find a new home, I chose Willows and came back to Willows. And one of the reasons is because I knew folks for 25 years and they stopped by the house and it's comfortable and it's friendly and it's a great place to be. And we can go elsewhere if we need entertainment or other things, but we can also enjoy the pleasures of a small town. And I grew up in a small town, so that's why I chose Willows. And I think we can make this better. When I got here in 1995, I thought if Willows could grow to 12,000 people, we'd still be small, but we'd have sufficient population to provide where you could buy a stove and a refrigerator and a pair of shoes, which we did have in 1995, a shoe store and some clothing stores. But I think the ability to order online and the convenience of, it was unheard of in the 70s and the 60s to run an hour to another town to buy something and be back, leave at 2 and be back at 5 o'clock. But that's pretty commonplace anymore. So we need to see if we can, as a community, get back to helping ourselves by helping others by buying locally and finding the product local, and not have the Amazon truck show up in your house every day. And I know they do collect sales tax, and it goes to the county, and the county then parcels it back to the cities and themselves based on what sales tax the city of Willows generates, the sales tax the city of Orland generates, in the county. And if I'm wrong on that, you'll have to correct me. But if we could capture that, more sales locally, we'll all be better off, and we'll all have more dollars for the recreation that we want for our children. With that, Ms. Brown, do you have anything else to add?
I do not, no.
Then I will adjourn the meeting. It is 6:18.